There is a very high chance that Bauhaus design has already shaped your life today, and you weren't even aware of it. The phone in your hand, the very clean logo on the app that you love, that chair in a trendy coffee shop, the apartment with huge windows and minimal furniture, even the idea that good design should be functional. That all traces back to one design movement. And honestly, once you understand Bauhaus, you look at modern design completely differently. Because it wasn't just an art style, it was a radical idea, a philosophy, a rebellion against unnecessary decoration, a design movement that asked, okay, how can design make everyday life better for everyone? And whether people realize it or not, that one question still controls design till this day. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what Bauhaus actually was, why Germany created one of the most influential design schools in history, and why some people still obsess over it while others criticize it, and what designers from this era could learn from it now. Because I think understanding design history actually makes you a better designer. Not in a pretentious way, not in a memorize the dates for school type of way, but instead going, oh, that's why that design looks how it does. And trust me, once you understand Bauhaus influence, you can't unsee it. So first of all, let's talk about what Bauhaus actually was. The Bauhaus School was founded in 1919 in Germany by an architect, Walter Gropius. And the timing here matters a lot. Germany had just come out of World War I. The country was dealing with political instability, economic struggle, and industrialization. This is all a massive cultural change. People were rethinking everything, including art, including architecture, and including the role of design itself. Before Bauhaus, a lot of art and design traditions focused heavily on ornamentation and decoration. Things were often elaborate, intricate, and handcrafted. And while that was beautiful, Bauhaus designers felt like society was moving too fast to be trapped in the past. Factories were becoming more important. Mass production was changing the world, and modern cities were growing. So Bauhaus asked, what would design look like if it was created for modern life? And that question changed everything. One of the biggest misconceptions that people have about Bauhaus is it was just about minimalism and primary colors. But the real heart of Bauhaus is actually much deeper. Bauhaus believed that art, craftsmanship, and technology should all work together. This movement wanted to remove the divide between art and practical design, which honestly is kind of revolutionary. Before this, artists and craftspeople were actually treated very differently. Painting was considered elevated, whereas furniture making or typography was seen as something more practical. But Bauhaus said no. Designing a chair matters. Designing a building matters. Typography matters. Everyday objects matter just as much. And I personally genuinely love that philosophy, because I think that truly good design is one of the most underrated things in human history. A well-designed object could reduce stress. It could make information easier to understand. It could improve accessibility for everyone. It could do things like create emotional clarity. It could shape how you as an individual move through an entire space. And that is so powerful. And Bauhaus understood that design was not just decoration. It is problem solving. And that idea became foundational for modern graphic design. Now visually, Bauhaus became known for simplicity, clean geometry, sans serif typography, grid systems, functional furniture, minimal ornamentation and strong shapes, primary colors, industrial materials. And there is a reason for all of this. Bauhaus believed that if something didn't serve a purpose, it probably shouldn't be there. This is where the phrase form follows function became heavily associated with modernist thinking. Design should support the purpose, not fight against it. And honestly, that philosophy, it absolutely changed graphic design forever. You could still see Bauhaus influence everywhere. In Apple's clean product design, in modern influenced UI design, in Scandinavian interiors, in architecture, in branding. You could see it in editorial layouts. You could find it in minimalist fashion. Even in the reason that so many brands use sans serif logos now. It all connects back to modernist design influence. And yes, Some people overdo it. We've all seen those companies that flatten their logos into sad geometric shapes. RIP to personality. But that's actually why this conversation is so interesting to me. Bauhaus design solved a lot of problems, but it also created a lot of debate. Something that I think gets lost sometimes when it comes to discussions about design history is that Bauhaus wasn't cold when it started. Some people like to describe modernism like it was emotionless, but the original intention was actually deeply hopeful. Designers believed that good design could improve society. That's beautiful. After the chaos of war, many artists and architects wanted to create a cleaner, more functional, more unified furniture. There was optimism there. The school encouraged experimentation. Students worked across multiple disciplines. Painters collaborated with architects. Designers explored materials in new ways. Typography became much more dynamic. There was this feeling of what happens when we completely rethink creative education. And honestly, some of the teaching methods were wildly beyond their times. Students were encouraged to explore texture and composition, materials, balance, contrast. They were encouraged to explore things like spatial relationships. And there was like a lot of hands-on experimentation, which sounds very familiar in this day and time. Because design, till this day, still uses many of those foundations. If you've ever taken a basic design course and done color theory exercises, shape study, grid layouts, or even material exploration, you've felt the ripple of Bauhaus. Even if no one has told you that, I'm telling you that. Now, unfortunately, Bauhaus did exist during a very politically unstable time in Germany. As extremist political movements gained power, Bauhaus became heavily criticized. The Nazis viewed modernist art and experimental design as unacceptable and labeled much of it as degenerative art. The school faced increasing pressure and eventually closed in 1933. But ironically, the shutdown actually spread the influence further. Many of the Bauhaus artists, architects, and designers migrated to other countries, especially the United States, and they brought their ideas with them. And that's one of the reasons that Bauhaus became global. It spread through architecture schools, graphic design, industrial design, advertising, furniture, photography. The movement didn't just disappear, it evolved. Now here's where I want to make this conversation a little more nuanced, because I think it's important to acknowledge that not everyone loves what modernism became. And honestly, I understand both sides. On one hand, Bauhaus helped create clarity, functionality, accessibility, timing systems. It stripped away visual clutter. But on the other hand, when modernism is pushed too far, design starts to feel sterile and too corporate, very interchangeable. And I think right now we're starting to see some backlash of that. People are craving personality again, texture, handmade imperfections, experimental typography, vintage influences, human warmth, which is why design trends tend to move in cycles. It is human nature to rebel against the extremes. When design becomes too chaotic, people crave order. When design becomes too perfect, people crave humanity. And that tension is honestly what makes design so fascinating to me, and why I personally don't think that Bauhaus should be treated as some untouchable sacred design. I think it should be studied, appreciated, built upon, because good designers don't just copy movements. They understand why the movement happened, and that's the important part. So what could we actually take from Bauhaus today? I think the biggest lesson is intentionality. Every design choice should have a reason. Not because design has to be boring, not because decoration is evil, not because everything needs to be a white rectangle in Helvetica, but because intentional design is stronger design. Bauhaus teaches us to ask, why am I using that font? Why this layout? Why this color? Why this shape? What's my hierarchy? And honestly, that type of mindset could really level up your work, because we all know baby designers tend to focus heavily on aesthetics only. No shame, I was there before too. But experienced designers think about communication, experience, emotion, functionality, usability. Bauhaus reminds us that design affects real people, and I think that matters more than ever, especially in a world of AI-generated content and trends. Right now we are seeing endless waves of aesthetically pleasing, emotionally unavailable content. And ironically, I think that Bauhaus would have criticized that too, because despite the clean aesthetics, Bauhaus was very intentional. The philosophy behind it, the purpose behind it, it wasn't just trying to look modern. It was trying to solve problems. And that distinction matters. I think one of the reasons that Bauhaus still fascinates designers 100 years later is because the core question hasn't gone away. What is the design actually for? Is it self-expression, communication, function, emotion, commerce, beauty, accessibility? The client will probably say all of them. And the designer's answer to that question shapes culture. And that's why studying movements like Bauhaus is so valuable. Not because we should blindly imitate the past, but because understanding the history helps us understand ourselves as designers. It helps us recognize cycles, patterns, influence. And honestly, it makes you notice the world differently. You start walking through the cities and realizing, oh wow, modern design didn't appear out of nowhere. Real people built these ideas. People argued over them, experimented with them, failed, pushed boundaries. And some of those ideas changed the entire visual language of the modern world, which is kind of incredible if you think about it. Okay, so now I want to hear from you. Do you love Bauhaus design? Do you think modern minimalism has gone too far? Or do you think that Bauhaus principles are exactly what designers need right now? Because honestly, this is one of my favorite conversations in design history. And once you start noticing Bauhaus influence everywhere, there's no going back. But okay guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe for more content just like this because I make videos every single week. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!